Hey, this is my DNRS Journal, something I'm doing to help myself keep track of ideas that I find helpful and will hopefully be helpful to other people. And what I want to share is an analogy to another medical treatment that I've experienced that has helped me think about, conceptualize what I'm doing with the DNRS therapy. And I think this will be something, at least a couple of points that'll be helpful to others, even if you haven't had this other sort of treatment. And this is, for aches and pains that have come from exercise and whatnot, entering middle age, muscular things. Um, there are a couple of doctors that I see. They're chiropractors, but I don't go to them, primarily for adjustments. But there'll be, let's say, a spot that has come up in my shoulder or whatnot that's particularly bothering me, and they will identify it as scar tissue that's been built up. A weak link that I happen to have, and we all have weak links of various sorts that show themselves through injury, through pain, and they will break up that scar tissue, which is not altogether a pleasant process, I will say, speaking about that. But there is an immediate kind of relaxation. It's not a immediate relief of pain, but there's an immediate relaxation that feels right. That this is what needs to happen to break up that scar tissue. So I think about that breaking up of the scar tissue that's been built up over time as analogous to the rutted neural pathways in the limbic system that have been established over time, and that our training is disrupting. Our training is disrupting in order to allow, again, there's a relaxation of the limbic system that is, I think, part of the experience of this training to allow for a healing which takes time. So, with the training on the muscle, it often takes multiple trips. It's a process. It's a physical therapy, and what we're doing with our brain through DNRS is literally a form of physical therapy. Now, two things that have been helpful for me in thinking about this analogy. First is that just the fact that healing and experience of symptoms, pain or discomfort, do not necessarily track one to one. So with DNRS training, you have been told, you should have been told, not to expect, sort of linear decline of symptoms over time, but there will be flare-ups. But it helps, I think, to recognize that the flare-ups are not necessarily in any way an indication that the healing is not taking place. Different things heal in different ways. And the healing, just trust that the healing is continuing to happen while you are sticking with, in a disciplined way, your training daily, multiple times a day, every day. Stick with the training, okay? Don't take the flare up of a symptom as a setback about which to be frustrated. That's point number one. Point number two is with the healing of this scar tissue in my muscles and my fascia and so forth. As part of that healing process, as it calms down and relaxes, I am encouraged to, and sometimes I'm better at this than others, but encouraged to introduce some strengthening, some training around that part. I've discovered a weak link, right? We all have weak links. I've discovered a weak link, and I need to be intentional about strengthening and training in order to help that part function well and to avoid additional injury in the future. So I think, I think of myself as Annie Hopper says, people with chronic illness or limbic system dysfunction are kind of canaries in the coal mine. We have been triggered, set off by something in our environment. In my case, it was mold exposure some 9 years ago, So yeah, I've got a weak link that others don't have, and I need to do the strengthening and training of my limbic system. All right, which is in addition to the healing. Now, last point on the strengthening of the limbic system. I think this is where the emotional component becomes critical because your symptoms, as you, I'm sure, are well aware if you're going through this, your symptoms are bound up with your thought, your conscious thought, and your emotion. I think about this as a sort of limbic triad. I've got another video where I talk about this. Um, as I've gotten further into this, I find the emotional component to be really coming to the fore for me in my limbic training. And I'm thinking about that as really the strengthening element, emotional strengthening to provide support for my limbic system to completely heal and going forward to avoid any further triggering or to minimize to the extent that I, knowing my own weak spots that have been uncovered, am capable to avoid. Um, again, just emotional strengthening. And this is, I think, an aspect of DNRS that carries beyond just the treatment of uh, the symptoms that I went in hoping to alleviate, and to my incredible delight, have been able to 90+% alleviate. It's really remarkable, but also remarkable, and this is a story that you hear on the DNRS YouTube page repeatedly, the ramifications for one's self beyond just the symptoms. And I think a lot of that has to do with putting yourself in control of all the aspects that your limbic system manages. And number one, when you just Google limbic system, it's the emotional hub, all right? So managing that emotional hub, intentionally strengthening it, is for the good of your overall well-being beyond your chronic illness and for the rest of your life. So anyway, that's my thought that's been helpful to me. Hope it's been to you as well. All right, stay well. Bye.